Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
Playoff weekend, man. Super Wildcard Weekend. Can't wait.
Got a lot of games to get to. A lot of interesting matchups. Couple rookies in the playoffs this year, which is definitely an interesting thing. CJ Stroud is back, but in that division, it's kind of a given at that point. We got a lot to talk about, though. A lot to get into. But let's get into the breaking news that broke today, which was the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, has re-ruptured his Achilles, which he injured back in Week 7's game against the Cincinnati Bengals on October 20th. He then had his first surgery on October 25th, which was successful. But then he complained about discomfort after rolling his ankle in Miami very, very recently. And now it looks like he has re-ruptured his Achilles, which his recovery time right now seems like apparently 7 months, but he is expected to miss significant amounts of the 2025 season, but maybe not the full season. However, with the way that the Browns quarterback situation has been since Deshaun Watson got there, here's my question to you. Do you think the Browns should be in the quarterback market in this offseason?
Definitely. They should be anyway, whether his Achilles tendon healed the way it was supposed to or not. I mean, he's played very poorly since he's come back into the league after being suspended for a year and getting that huge contract from the Browns. He's really been a shadow of what he was before. The number of reasons for that, I think. Maybe the Browns' offense doesn't suit him well. He was better suited to what they had in Houston. Or he's just has lost it. I don't know. He's taken a lot of hits. The offense running back was hurt a big portion of the time he was in there, their best running back. And, their offense was terrible with him at the controls. And then he got hurt. And, they had some spurts. Jameis Winston had a couple of good games, but he was throwing for well over 200 yards a game, but he was throwing so many interceptions they had to take him out. So I don't think they have confidence in him, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, I like Jameis Winston. I think he has a lot of talent, but you can't keep throwing pick sixes. And then the other guy, Robinson, I don't know. He doesn't seem to be really ready for the NFL. So I would say they should be out looking for another quarterback. They should anyway. Who's going to be available? Maybe they'll look at Darnold, if he gets to free agency.
So you're saying Sam Darnold could be the next quarterback of the Browns?
Maybe.
Why, though?
Because
why would they want him?
Because they need a quality quarterback, and they haven't had it. And Deshaun Watson is not reliable.
So why not go in the draft?
Now, where do they pick? They pick reasonably high, right? Number two. So maybe they would go for Shedeur Sanders, yeah.
What if he gets picked first? You sticking with Cam
Ward?
Ward?
Then you go with, what's the other guy?
Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Would you trust him?
I don't know him that well. I'm not that familiar with him, and I know Sanders a little bit, but I'm not that big. I'm not that knowledgeable right now. I haven't gotten to the draft, haven't studied all the quarterbacks yet, so I'm not so up on the college quarterbacking situation.
Fair. All right, I've been on this now for the entire season, and even when the Deshaun Watson contract first broke through, this was a massive mistake. Desperate teams do desperate things. And to go behind Baker Mayfield's back at the time and sign Deshaun Watson after you said that you did not want to sign him, first of all, that was your biggest mistake, because look at Baker Mayfield now, and look at you. Right now you're starting Bailey Zappi, who threw it to a guy nearly 400 pounds, it seems, which was the third heaviest guy to catch an interception. That's how bad it turned into. DTR doesn't look like a great quarterback. Jameis Winston throws it to the defenders more than he does his own teammates. Deshaun Watson has one of the worst offenses that he led in the past decade and one of the worst in NFL history. And then Bailey Zappi, like I just said, he's not a starting quarterback. Hell, he's not even a backup quarterback in the NFL. This was a massive mistake. The Browns should have moved off him. The Browns should, let's just be honest, the Browns shouldn't have even signed him, because what happened was he was going through that sexual misconduct suit with several cases. I think it was over 30 cases. I might be wrong in the exact number, but it was absurd that there was even one. And then he comes back in the NFL after a year off. Then he's suspended through the first 11 games. And then what the shocking part of it was, Jacoby Brissett actually played relatively well. He got an insane win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that one year, and it was actually a pretty good season for Brissett. And then Deshaun Watson comes back, and it's not all that terrible. He goes 3 of 3, but he can't complete a lot of passes. 55% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks, and it was like, well, it's 11 game suspension and a year off. He's just rusty. And then a lot of those people ended up being correct through the first 6 games of 2023 when he went 5-1. Completion percentage wasn't that great, but it was still 7 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. But there was a little bit of an asterisk next to all of that, because if you look at the patterns, he does better when they run the ball effectively. They had the highest rushing attempt rate in the NFL when Deshaun Watson was the starting quarterback. So if they could not run the ball effectively, Deshaun Watson was essentially a pretty poor quarterback, which it turned out to be. He's averaged a pitiful 177 passing yards a game, a passer rating of 80. This is not a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. He's a $240 million liability. That's what he is now. He doesn't play well. He doesn't even play good. Because there were a lot of games this season that he played in, against the New York Giants, first off, where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. There were opportunity after opportunity to try to complete some passes late in the game and try to take the lead. And he just couldn't do it. Overthrow. Too far left. Underthrow. He's just an inaccurate quarterback, and he went 1-6 this year. It was a pitiful performance. And let's just say, for all intents and purposes, this is his last game in Cleveland. This past season was his last season. That means the Browns would have paid out $229.4 million for 19 games played. That means that Deshaun Watson gained essentially $12.1 million per game, and he won a grand total of 9 games for them. He went 9-10 in his time there with a completion percentage of 61.2, 19 touchdowns, 12 picks. This is probably the worst transaction in NFL history because there was no upside, literally zero. He also set the record at the time for the most guaranteed money in a contract in NFL history. It was recently broken by Dak Prescott just this past offseason, right before the season started, by a grand total of $1 million. So, yes, I would absolutely be in the quarterback market. Now the big question is, what quarterback would it be? I would, at the time, I don't think that this draft class is good with quarterbacks at all. At all. I would actually, and especially, I've said this to my friends about a couple of teams. First of all, Arch Manning, reportedly, he's going to play a bunch of years in college. Fine. But I think he would be a great acquisition for the Giants next season. I think the Giants should either trade for a quarterback or draft a skill position piece, but I'm sure we'll get into that in the offseason. I think that there's really only one first-round quarterback, and that's probably Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward might be a nice second. And I think right now, the way it's looking, the Titans look like they're going to draft Cam Ward, and especially at the number 2 position, you have to be in love with Shedeur Sanders in order to draft him at number 2. But regardless, Deshaun Watson should not be your starting quarterback in 2025. I know you may feel contractually obligated because you're spending so much money on Deshaun Watson to start him, but if you want to win games, if Kevin Stefanski wants to keep his job, he's 3-14 this season. That's what Cleveland went, 3-14. With one nice win over the Baltimore Ravens. But that's it. That's literally it. What else have the Browns done? Nick Chubb's getting older, and he's also been banged up several times. You're now in an increasingly difficult division, it seems, with the Pittsburgh Steelers now. Who knows what they're going to do with the quarterback situation, but the Ravens are still there. Joe Burrow's still in your division. The conference itself is incredibly difficult because now you have to play Justin Herbert with a brand new head coach. Bo Nix seems to be a star. The Kansas City Chiefs are always great. Miami, I'm sure it's going to somehow fix itself. Buffalo, Patriots with the right coach and right skill position pieces might be nice. Who knows what the Jets will look like with its skill position players with a quarterback that's good and a legitimate head coach. The conference is incredibly difficult. The only one that I'll give you a pass on is the AFC South because it looks like C.J. Stroud went into a sophomore slump. The Colts are a tire fire if they start Anthony Richardson. The Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has regressed year after year the past few years. And it's just it's a very, very poor situation. The Cleveland Browns need to change everything. I would clean house. Ownership is terrible. Head coach situation is okay, but what it's dealing with is a bad offensive line, which it was actually an injury-riddled offensive line, if we're going to be honest. A running back that's very good. You have one very nice receiver, but that's about it. So for me, draft a quarterback. I don't care if you draft one, but you have to be in love with them. I don't care if you sign one. It does not matter. For me, Deshaun Watson should not be the starter if you want to win some games. He went 1-6 this year. I don't care about.
The question is, who is going to be the quarterback?
Well, the question is, should the Browns be in the quarterback market this offseason? My answer is yes.
Okay, but who would they get? They want to try to be competitive. What quarterback are they going to go get? Who's going to be available? I mentioned Sam Darnold. They may be able to get him. He might be a free agent quarterback.
I still think J.J. McCarthy's available. I think J.J. McCarthy is a signing piece. Here's the thing. You throw out Daniel Jones in his quarterback competition in Minnesota. He's not. I'm telling you right now, he will not start a single game. At least be the week 1 starter of any team next year because he hasn't earned to be the week 1 starter. I'm not so sure about that. Who would he beat out? The only opportunity he has is in Minnesota.
My argument was he would be the bridge quarterback in Minnesota.
Even though they have the rookie quarterback there. So
they have him, but he may not be ready to start. I mean, he did well in the preseason before he got hurt.
Did incredibly well in the preseason.
He might have been the starter, actually.
There was a shot. I don't know how big of a shot it is, but there was a shot. I don't care who you get. They need a quarterback. Joe Flacco could come back for all I care. Because he ended up being the comeback player of the year in, 6 or whatever, 8 games off the couch. Yeah. Throwing over 300 yards a game, making the playoffs
2 years
somehow.
ago now. How old is he? He's going to be last year. 40.
It was last year.
Oh, it's going to be 2 years ago when they start next season. Yeah. So how old is he now? He's almost 40, right?
I think he is 40.
He is 40. He looked pretty slow, Nate, out there this year. I saw him.
And yet he was better than a 22-year-old Anthony Richardson, 24-year-old Anthony Richardson?
Well, Anthony Richardson was poor, for sure.
Exactly, and he was better than him.
No, well,
his birthday's in 5 days, by the way.
He's a statue back there. If you can protect him, then maybe he can be effective, but he's a statue. He's not going to run out of the pocket.
So do you need one to actually do that? I don't think so.
Their offensive line is good or not? I'm not.
This season, it was banged up with injuries here and there. Yeah. But, over the past, I want to say, since Baker Mayfield got there, so the past 8 years, it's been, a top 5, top 10 offensive line generally. It just had an issue this year, and I think a large part was Deshaun Watson, who was one of the highest guys to generate his own types of pressure. Yeah, so this season, it was a bit rough. They were 24th in the league.
So, yes, they should be in the market for a quarterback. Who it's going to be, we're not sure.
Give me, I've said J.J. McCarthy for the Giants, and I still believe that, but I think he's a perfect acquisition for him. Young quarterback will be cheap except for draft capital. He's still on his rookie contract. If the Vikings go with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, or for your case, Daniel Jones, well, there you go. He's going to be available. He's going to be sitting there.
Maybe. I think it'd be tough for the Minnesota to give up on McCarthy without having him ever play a game.
I mean, the 49ers essentially did that. They gave Trey Lance 4 games. Yeah. And then they got rid of him because the very last pick in the draft.
It's a different situation. I think McCarthy, he never got onto the field in the regular season yet because of the meniscus tear.
Well, if you're telling me that Daniel Jones is going to be the starter week 1 as the bridge quarterback, then he's going to wait even longer now. Yeah, and I'd be seriously concerned if Daniel Jones beats out J.J. McCarthy. I'd be very concerned. Because if the New York Giants got off him, and the Giants right now, are they 3-14? If the Giants got off him, what message does that send to Vikings fans that their would be now year 2 quarterback isn't ready to play? He couldn't even beat out Daniel Jones.
No. Maybe he would beat out Daniel Jones. It's hard to say.
I'm banking on it because if he's not, I'd put up some red flags. I'd sound the alarm. Because Daniel Jones, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I do not think Kevin O'Connell could fix Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Remains to be seen.
Because he doesn't see the field. I remember week 1 against the Vikings. He couldn't see the field. We could talk about his injury or whatever. Okay, that might make his throwing motion different, but he couldn't see receivers. Receivers were open. He didn't throw it to him. That was my issue. If he can't see the receivers, then that's a serious problem. At least Sam Darnold has a lot of starting experience. He's now making his first playoff start. There's a lot going on with Sam Darnold. Kyle Shanahan liked him a lot.
Well, we'll see how he does in this playoff game. He didn't do well in his biggest game of his career against the Lions.
No one does very well against the Lions. It's very rare. Josh Allen really was the only one that did very well against the Lions.
Defense, and they're
getting healthier.
Their defense since week 11, when they maxed out on the injuries, has been much weaker.
And yet they only allowed the Vikings to score 9 points.
I know they played well, but
they're getting healthier.
Yeah. Well, they are getting healthier, but they still have a lot of pieces out.
But hasn't mattered though. They're what?
No, it didn't matter. But
2.
Darnold couldn't crack them. He did not play well against them. It was his worst game of the season. And if he loses this playoff game against the Rams, I think there's a fair chance he hits free agency.
Maybe. All right, let's get into the games though. Super Wildcard Weekend starts. So let's start with the first games. The Chargers against the Texans. The Chargers 11-6 make a playoffs for the first time since 2022. This time with the first year head coach coming back from college, Jim Harbaugh, first year with the Chargers. Chargers defense is the best in the league after being the worst in the league for several years under Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn. Now Jim Harbaugh's first year with the Chargers is the number 1 defense in the league, while after a miraculous rookie season for C.J. Stroud, a massive sophomore slump has struck him. And now the Texans, while they do repeat that record of 10-7, their offense is not as good, and their defense has regressed slightly, but regressed nonetheless. And they currently, out of the last 4 games, they're 2-2. So not a great look with losses against the Chiefs and the Ravens. They ended up getting a very nice victory over the Titans, who are having a live QB battle between Mason Rudolph and Will Levis. But I want to know, though, do you think the Chargers will get their first playoff win since 2018 when Phillip Rivers was their quarterback, or will the Texans go back-to-back and win at least one playoff game?
Well, the Chargers are the lower seed here. They're number 5 versus the Texans at 4 because the Texans won their division. The Texans are playing at home. Despite that, the odds makers have the Chargers -3. I think the key to the winning this game is whichever team's defense can consistently generate pressure with an occasional free rush. Both defenses are among the very best at creating havoc for the quarterback. The Texans, the lowest completion percentage at 58.8%. The Chargers at 65%, number 11. Both teams have suspect offensive lines. Both quarterbacks in the top 4 in unblocked pressures. The Chargers have the number 1 defense based on scoring. The Chargers safety Derwin James is a big factor in their defense. I see him as the X factor. He has 5.5 sacks and 15 pressures on the quarterback. I think if he plays well in this game, that bodes well for the Chargers defense. I'm picking the Chargers in this game, 24-10. I think they cover the point spread easily. I think the Texans, they've been much poorer team than they were last year. And as you say, C.J. Stroud having a sophomore slump. The officiating crew in this game threw the 5th fewest flags at 13.8 per game. Particularly defensive holding, where the Chargers had 10 penalties over 2024, so that bodes well for them. The Chargers entered the game with a lot of confidence, I think, particularly going up against the Texans. Texans, on the other hand, they struggled against the higher caliber teams, Kansas City, the Ravens, the Lions. They got beat by all those teams. Only one game against this year's playoff teams. So I like the Chargers. I think they're going to win this game. I like Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a better coach than than Ryan.
Well, I'm going to go with the Chargers as well, and for me, it's really easy. Let's just put the numbers. I got them winning 24-17. The Chargers, for me, though, this is a team that I always thought and believed that they would be underneath a at least passable head coach, Brandon Staley, because on paper, you look at the players that the Chargers have had for the past few seasons, and you're like, how the hell are they 5-12? How are they losing? How can they not get any sort of success in totality? How come Justin Herbert's defense has given up the most yards and the most points, or at least the most yards in the first 3 years of a quarterback's career? How is that possible? It's because they didn't have good coaching. You bring in Jim Harbaugh, who has won everywhere he's been. He made it to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback. He ended up winning in college, leading Michigan to an undefeated season. He comes into the NFL for a team that just went 5-12 and completely turns it around, and also had one of the worst defenses year after year after year in the Los Angeles Chargers, and made them the number one scoring defense in the league, averaging only 17.7 points allowed per game, as well as having the best red zone defense in the NFL and the fifth best third down defense in the NFL. That's Jim Harbaugh effect. That's what it is right there. My X factor for me, it's not about defense, it's about offense. Because the offense of the Chargers, that's been kind of the negative side of this Chargers team. Justin Herbert's numbers took a pretty decent slide. Remember, he threw for, 5,000 yards a couple seasons ago? Well, now he's throwing 3,800, nearly 3,900 yards, 23 touchdowns, but here's the big one, only 3 interceptions. So he was incredibly efficient with the football. He led the league in interception percentage, the lowest interception percentage at 0.6, which is massive. But this offense doesn't run very well without an effective running game. J.K. Dobbins, though, he for me is the big X factor, because if he can't get going, Justin Herbert, a lot of arm. I don't know if I trust it within this scheme. Greg Roman loves the running game. He did that over with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, made them one of the best running teams in the NFL, and we've seen the effectiveness of that running game within the Chargers. They don't run the ball very well. The offense kind of is stagnant and remains sort of plateaued at just okay. They struggle to get first downs, and they struggle to convert in the big-time situations. But I believe in Justin Herbert. I thought he should have been drafted over Tua Tagovailoa way back when. I did a mock draft years ago picking Justin Herbert over Tua, because I believe that Herbert was a better quarterback. And right now, I still believe that I'm right about that. But I got to give it to Justin Herbert. I'll give it to Jim Harbaugh. He'll be able to stop a Texans team that is pitiful. They're I think they might be the most banged up, or at least one of the most banged up teams in the NFL. Shaq Mason's out for this game, so that's already, you're down an offensive lineman. So the Chargers are the healthier team. Their offensive line, I think, is good. Interior offensive line, that's going to be an issue. But you have Joe Alt, right tackle, Rashawn Slater, left tackle. I mean, Joe Alt as a rookie has been an insane piece for them. It was a great move by Jim Harbaugh. My issue when it comes to that offense, besides the potential lack of efficiency from the running game, is Quentin Johnston. If this game does come down to a big-time moment, will he be able to catch the football, which he has struggled with his entire career? If he has trouble catching the football, then I'm saying that the Chargers may be in a little bit of danger. But I think that right now, with the way the Texans have been playing against some of the big-time teams, like, for instance, getting essentially, I'm calling it shutout, because offensively they got shut out. They only put up 2 points, but it was on a Derrick Henry safety. Offensively, they did absolutely nothing. 211 total yards in that game. That's bad. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, poor. They lost to the Tennessee Titans earlier in the year. They lost to the Jets by a touchdown. These are teams that you should generally beat, at least when it comes to the Titans and the Jets, because everybody's beating the Jets. The Titans are a terrible team. They have the number 1 overall pick in the draft. But the Texans somehow found a way to lose. So for me, and I'll also add to the fact, I guarantee if Mac Jones started against the Texans this year, instead of Trevor Lawrence going out there before he got hurt and going 4 of 10 for 48 yards and an interception, and what Mac Jones did and what I saw on the field in that game, Mac Jones probably should have won that game too, because he brought him back from, 17-3, and the final score ended up being 23-20. So when it comes to the Texans, their offensive line is bad. C.J. Stroud's under pressure, and he's not handling it very well. His offensive line wasn't great last year, but it was better than it was this year. He's getting killed a lot, at least pressured a lot in the backfield. That's causing him to generate some turnovers, at least some turnover-worthy plays, and especially with Stephon Diggs down and Tank Dell down, it'll be Nico Collins or bust because Joe Mixon has hit-or-miss games. And as of late, it's been a couple misses there, some bad misses as well. They have the 20th ranked third down percentage, 26th ranked red zone percentage, and please, if the Chargers somehow get into the red zone, I think it'll be relatively easy for them because the Texans hold the 27th ranked red zone defense. Give me the Chargers all the way. It has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, this is probably the easiest pick of the week.
Yeah.
Maybe Broncos-Bills is an easier one, but I can't see the Texans pulling out this win unless Chargers on the road in a playoff game. Last time we saw that, it wasn't pretty because last time we saw that was that Jacksonville game where you're up massive at halftime, and then in the second half, you completely collapse.
What a great job by Jim Harbaugh. He drafted Alt. He drafted McConkey. Both those guys have been great.
Yeah.
And he turned that defense around, right? Even though the defense, they led the league with the fewest points allowed per game, part of the year they had injuries. They had some serious injuries to some of their better players on defense, and they still managed to do that. Justin Herbert, I think he got better play out of Justin Herbert, even though his yards are down. Only 3 interceptions, led the league in that. Their offense running game, that's going to be the key, as you say. Dobbins is back. He's healthy. He's maybe a little rested because he was out for a while there. So I like the Chargers as well. I think they'll win the game relatively easily.
Let's get into the next one. This one's, I think, one of the biggest ones, although somehow it has the lowest ticket prices out of any game this weekend. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lamar Jackson historically 2-4 in the playoffs, while the Steelers, they're on a 4-game losing streak, and it's not looking great. They're averaging a little bit above 14 points a game during that losing streak. Meanwhile, the Ravens defense, from being one of the worst in the NFL to now being one of the best as of late, it's taken a massive positive swing in favor of them, and Derrick Henry's always remained consistent, and Lamar Jackson, I think, is inching closer to an MVP, especially being voted first-team All-Player right now. So it's looking like Lamar Jackson is, because generally if you vote him first-team All-Pro, generally that means that you're going to make you're going to win the MVP award, but we'll see what the voting says when it comes down to it. But this is a big game. Lamar Jackson, a lot on the line. Because the narrative is he can't win big time, and he can't win in big spots, especially in the playoffs. The last time we saw him in the playoffs, he was getting creamed by Kansas City. He put up 10 points. It was just a bad game all around. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. So here's my question for you. Will Lamar crush these playoff narratives, or will the Steelers find a way to upset the Baltimore Ravens?
No, I like the Ravens in this game. I don't think they'll cover the point spread. It's 9.5. I was a little surprised by that. I think it's going to be more like 28-20. I'd say the Ravens, they have the best player in the NFL in Lamar Jackson, and he's proved that this year. Whether he can do it in the playoffs or not remains to be seen. He's only 2-4 in playoff games in his career, but this is the best version of the Ravens that in the Jackson era. He is at his peak of his powers, I think, with an offense that ranks first in rushing and total yards and third in scoring. The defense has improved drastically down the stretch here, ranking best in the NFL on multiple categories since Week 11. Key to winning for the Ravens, I'd say, is Lamar passing under 30 times and Henry running the ball more than 20 times. We've talked about that multiple times on our show as the key formula for the Ravens winning a game and winning games, and I think that they're pushed into this even more in this game as Zay Flowers is out. He's not going to play. Jackson, on the other hand, has a history of turning the ball over against the Steelers. The defense, which has faded down the stretch for the Steelers, allowing 258 yards passing per game, may make it a little easier for Lamar this time. Maybe he'll be able to hang on to the ball and not turn it over against them. The Steelers, on the other hand, they got to get the offense going. I mean, they only have 14 points and 258 yards per game in their 4-game losing streak. They're on a downswing here. Their defense isn't playing that well either, as I just mentioned, particularly on first down. They only have 4.5 yards. They only have a 37% success rate on getting first downs and moving the ball down the field. in the first quarter. The 31st in quarterback, and they're 31st in that, and the success rate, and the QBR is 40, 29th. They need greater use of Justin Fields, who's healthy, and I think that's going to be a difference in this game. I think that compared to what the Steelers have been doing, they're desperate right now. I think you see the other quarterback, the Wilson. He has played poorly down the stretch. He's turning the ball over, making terrible decisions. I think you're going to see Justin Fields get more playing time in this game, and I think it'll be a surprise factor. When he comes into the game, you think, run. Well, I bet you'll see him throw the ball a few times in this game, and if it's successful, the more successful it will be, the more he'll be in there. So I see that as the X factor for the Steelers. For the Ravens, the X factor in my mind is Kyle Van Noy. He's got 12.5 sacks this season and 45 quarterback pressures. He's had a fantastic season, and he's getting older too. I'm surprised the Patriots gave up on him and let him go. He had a lot left in the tank.
Bill Belichick decision.
Yeah. Ravens will, I think they'll have a scheme matchups for Van Noy to create twists and stunts that create quarterback pocket disruption on Russell Wilson, and I think they'll be successful at that. This is 100% AFC North playoff game. It's interesting. The third time these two teams have met this season. I don't know how the Ravens lost to the Raiders and the Browns this year. How'd that happen? I don't understand that. That worries me a little bit, you know. But the Steelers, on the other hand, a disastrous ending down the stretch here, 4 losses in a row after they contended for the number 1 seed most of the year. I mentioned Zay Flowers being out. The refs in this game, it's just a crew that threw 59 offensive holding penalties this season, tied for the most in the NFL. The Ravens with flagged third most for offensive holding this year, 29. The Steelers had 18 penalties, tied them for 18th. So be interesting to watch the penalties in this game. The Ravens having a lot of penalties this season.
Well, I was going to pick the Ravens. And then I thought to myself, what's been the narrative? Really the only narrative Lamar Jackson's got. It's innocent until proven guilty in the court of America. Well, how about we create a new one for football? You have to prove yourself that you actually are worthy of being a top-tier quarterback, especially in the biggest moments. So for me, it's Lamar Jackson. Prove that you could make in a big-time spot, you could be great. Because against one of your big-time, all-time rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and in the playoffs, you've struggled. I know people don't want to hear that, but Lamar Jackson individually has struggled. He has the same record in his career as a starter with against the Steelers, and also in the playoffs. A 57% completion percentage, essentially against both. Touchdowns. 8 touchdowns against the Steelers to 9 picks. Meanwhile, in the playoffs, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, 6-6, and a passer rating of 72.8 against the Steelers, and in the playoffs in general, a 75.7. You combine those two, it doesn't look good for Lamar Jackson. Yes, he did have a great game as of late against the Pittsburgh Steelers during this losing streak. But when you go up against some pretty ferocious teams late in the year and you were on a massive, massive 8-game stretch of going up against great teams, eventually you're going to tire out a little bit. And I think when it comes down to this game, Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, which we've seen him struggle in, we could talk about the Texans game all you want last year, but that's up against a rookie quarterback. And I don't know what else to say. Rookie quarterbacks in the NFL, they don't do very well in the playoffs. It's just how it is. And especially going up against the number 1 seed against your defense at the time, which you were putting up numbers that you did back in 2000 when Ray Lewis was your big star back then. And you ended up actually allowing a singular touchdown in the entire postseason. And I believe it was a kick return or a punt return touchdown. That was it. Well, then what am I supposed to do? Yes, you could talk about your beating a rookie quarterback all you want. I'm not going to argue that. Not going to argue that at all. But you also can't argue these numbers. Lamar Jackson isn't good in the playoffs, and he's not good against his division rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you're going up against Mike Tomlin, who desperately needs a playoff win. He hasn't done anything in the playoffs in several years. We have Russell Wilson now, who looks like the Russ that I've been talking about since he entered Denver, which is he's falling off a cliff. And people are like, well, no, look at the numbers here. I'm like, no, just give it time. He'll look good in the first couple of games, which he did. Just give it some time. Let the real Russ shine through. because Russ made some terrible decisions as of late. There was a play very recently against the Bengals where instead of throwing it out of bounds, he decided to run and then drop down to waste more clock. What are you doing? I think, and I put up the numbers, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, the numbers say they were essentially identical this year. But because of that great start and the offense looked a little bit better initially, people thought that Russell Wilson's the better quarterback this year. You need to put Justin Fields out there more. Because Russ in the pocket, he can't run very well. He's much, much slower than Justin Fields. I don't care if you bring him out there and everybody knows he's going to run the football. They did that the last time against the Ravens too. When it was a third down and they run him out. They doing a QB sneak, they put Justin Fields out there. It doesn't matter. He's faster, he's more elusive, and you know what? He actually, I believe, has a higher completion percentage. So, for me, it's Justin Fields. You got to put Justin Fields out there in somehow. I don't care what capacity you do it in, but you have to put him out there. The defense, though, that is how the Steelers will win this game. I'm picking the Steelers in an upset to win. Because I think that when it comes down to it, you blend the combination of Pittsburgh Steelers and Lamar Jackson and playoff Lamar Jackson, it doesn't really bode well. It really doesn't. I do not think the woes will go away because you haven't proven to me. Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP, one vote away from being a 2-time unanimous MVP, who looks like, based on the numbers that people are arguing, although numbers didn't care, people didn't worry about the numbers last year, but this year they do. Based on the numbers, people are claiming him to be the 3-time MVP. Well, if he is about to win his 3rd MVP, prove it. Prove it. He put up these great numbers in the regular season. The postseason is where you really get your bust out in canon. That's where you really get listed in the super elite, untouchable quarterbacks. Yes, he is the most athletic quarterback this league's ever seen. He's the most mobile quarterback this team has ever seen. But in the biggest moments, against the biggest teams, Lamar shrinks. And you know what? I expect him to shrink again. Because there's a big X factor out for the Ravens now. Zay Flowers is out. And they're going to have to rely on Rashad Bateman, who's their deep ball guy, to separate. They're going to need to rely on Derrick Henry, which now will be an obvious ploy for the Steelers to focus on. Because I guarantee you, just contain the running game. Try your best to stop Derrick Henry. Lamar Jackson as well. You could maybe stop his scrambles. And I think we saw in the last game, early on, it was a 7-7 ball game, and Russell Wilson decided to scramble. He never protected the ball, and he fumbled within their own 10-yard line, or within the Ravens' 10-yard line. That could have been a 14-7 ball game, and who knows what that game would have turned out to be after that point. So I'm taking the Steelers here. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think the defense will step up. I think T.J. Watt, who, by the way, set his own tie for most sacks against a division opponent with 17, I think he'll show up. The defense hasn't shown up as of late. I think it will against Lamar Jackson. They need this game. Mike Tomlin needs this game. Last time we saw him in the playoffs, Mason Rudolph was the starting quarterback. At least he has a better quarterback than Mason Rudolph out there. I think you need to put out Justin Fields more. Russ, he needs to complete some passes. I think Pat Freiermuth on the offensive side will be the X factor. Give me the Steelers. Was it 21-18? What did I say? Yeah, 21-18. Give me the Steelers.
Well, I'm surprised to hear you say all this, Nate. I mean, you were the one that were talking all season long about the winning formula for the Ravens. Throw less than 30 times, run it more than 20 times. Well, they're going to do that in this game. That would mean Lamar Jackson doesn't have to be Superman to win this game. He doesn't have to put himself in harm's way. He doesn't have to be in a position to make the big mistake. He's just going to hand it off to Derrick Henry. And by the way, you forgot to mention Mark Andrews. He's an X factor in this game. He's going to be getting a lot of short passes, and he's going to bull his way downfield. I think you're making a mistake. I think the Ravens are going to win this game. I think Lamar is going to have he's going to be more of a game manager here. They recognize what his playoff record is at 2-4. They have a horse in Derrick Henry. They have the best offense they've ever had, and they're going to hand the ball off to him. And you say the Steelers, their defense is going to play better. Why do you say that? They played like crap the last 5 or 6 games, and even Mike Tomlin came out and said, hey, the defense has not played well. And Russell Wilson's out there. He's going to be capable of making many mistakes as well. I agree with you that Justin Fields ought to get more playing time, but you know what? He hasn't been in there much at all since Russ started, and he's going to be rusty, so you can't rely on him to throw the ball much. He's not a great passer to begin with, so it'll be him running the ball, and that's what the Ravens are going to expect. So I don't think you're right here. I think the Ravens are going to win.
Well, okay, let's go with that logic then. let's say because Zay Flowers is out, and by the way, he nearly has double anyone else's targets on the Ravens this season. He also has almost double, at least wide receiver-wise, double the yards after the catch than any other Ravens receiver does. It becomes a one-dimensional offense then. Because if you look at the Eagles against the Commanders, once Jalen Hurts went down, you put out Kenny Pickett, then it was all Saquon Barkley. And what happened in that game? The Commanders ended up winning.
You know what? You keep running the ball with Derrick Henry. By the end of the middle of the third quarter through the end of the game, the defense is going to be tired. He's going to be running all over the place. The guy is a horse. He's one of the best running backs in NFL history. He challenged for the rushing record this year. He was just under 2,000 yards. He had every bit as good a season as Saquon Barkley, and he's out there to show it in this game against the Steelers. And the Steelers' defense is faded, and I don't see why you think it's going to suddenly rise up and to the occasion and be a factor in this game. I think the Ravens are going to take advantage of it. They're going to the Steelers are going to know what's coming. That's great. The Ravens are going to be able to capitalize on it. I see Lamar. He will throw the ball some. Lamar will throw the ball some, and he'll have success throwing it to Mark Andrews and a couple of long balls. So they'll heave it out there to soften up the defense to Bateman a few times too, and he'll catch a couple of those. So I like the Ravens.
I would be careful of that. Pratt Fireman, this is all going to be a time possession game. If the Steelers can control time of possession, then I have no issue. No issue.
Why would you think they'd be able to do that though? I mean, they have their offense has been stagnant. You look at Najee Harris; he's had his worst season. He's at the bottom of he's at the bottom of the league in yards per rush. He's at the very bottom of the league in yards per rush. He's had a crummy season in that regard. They can stop him. I don't think they have to worry too much about him. The Ravens defense playing a hell of a lot better than it's played since Week 11. It's been great. The passing defense has been good. The rushing defense is good. Kyle Van Noy, 12.5 sacks, 45 quarterback pressures. He's played He's playing as well as T.J. Watt right now. So I think the Ravens defense.
I don't think that
Ravens defense. I give him the plus here against the Steelers.
I think that's a little bit of Patriots bias because I don't think anyone in their right mind would take Kyle Van Noy even on the same level.
I'm talking about
TJ.
one game. In one game.
Okay, but I think
one game compared in the way he's played down the stretch. I think that, I think he's going to have a great game.
As great as T.J. Watt.
I'm saying for one game against.
We said since week 11.
In this game,
since week 11,
the Steelers defense. How is T.J. Watt done the last 5 weeks?
I can bring it up, but since week 11, it's not the past 5 weeks though.
Okay, well, since week 11, how's he done?
Well, also, if you break it down, if you break down position by position, you're going to tell me that through and through that the Ravens are better in every single position? Because I don't think you believe that.
I don't think they're not better in every category, but they're better. They're good enough to beat the Steelers.
You would think.
They beat them. They beat them easily in the last game they played against them.
Yes, but we have to realize that in that game they were tied 7-7, and the Russell Wilson was running for a touchdown and didn't cover a ball and fumble within the 5.
Ah, well, Russell Wilson. Who's the starting quarterback going to be tomorrow?
The same would have led them to a 10-7 record when you and I both thought they would have their first losing record that Mike Tomlin's ever had.
Well, I said they would lose down the stretch because they were playing tough teams. They don't beat the tough teams,
and they ended up still finishing with a 10-7 record.
Yeah,
which was far above what we thought they would do.
They were playing for the number 1 seed for most of the season, and then they fell apart at the end because they were playing tough competition.
Well, guess what? Who fails in tough competition in the playoffs? Your starting quarterback.
As I say, I don't think he doesn't
playoff record.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to be everything for them to win this game. They have a much better offense, more skilled players, and Derrick Henry out there tomorrow. And so he doesn't have to be in a situation where he has to make a risky play.
Well, but based on your logic, right, with Justin Fields,
they should use your formula. Throw under 30 times and run it over 20 times. That's the winning formula.
You know why they do that?
That's what they're going to do tomorrow.
You know why they do that? Because it works.
Yeah, well,
that's why they do it.
That's what they're going to do tomorrow.
Hold on. You said that it was such a bad idea for Justin Fields to go out there because they know he's going to run and everybody knows.
I didn't say it was a bad idea.
Well, you said that everybody knows what's coming.
I said he should be out there more.
Right, but you said that everybody
they're
will know
what's coming because he's not going to throw the ball.
So do you think that will be effective? If Justin Fields is out there and the Ravens defense knows what's going to happen.
I think it could be more effective than what they've been doing, right? They have to do something different. They've lost their last 4 games. Russell Wilson has played poorly. He's played like we expected him to play.
But that's my question is, if the Ravens defense knows what's coming, will Justin Fields going out there be effective if they use him as a utility piece? Which that everybody thought that when they had these 2 quarterbacks, Justin Fields would be that.
I think they'll have Justin Fields throw the ball more. I do, and that might shake up the Ravens a little bit, so they're not sure what's coming.
So are they splitting reps in the game?
I don't think. You know what? They might do that if Russell Wilson gets off to a poor start. You might see Justin Fields much more.
You think that Mike Tomlin, who believed in Russell Wilson from day one, would bench his quarterback mid-game for Justin Fields? When has Mike Tomlin ever done that?
If they're down 24-7.
Well, that's an entirely different story.
Yeah.
That's not, let's give Justin Fields a chance because he can give a spark to offense. That's, we're down and out, and we just are throwing guys out there to not get hurt. That's what that would be. No, the logic is, if you know exactly what's coming, and that's why I brought up the example of the Eagles when Jalen Hurts went down against the Commanders, and then it was going to be Saquon all day because Kenny Pickett's your quarterback. Just stop A.J. Brown from getting open. Kenny Pickett won't feel comfortable throwing it to any other receiver or any tight end. He'll just want to run the ball, which they ended up doing. And who won that game? Was it the Eagles or the Commanders?
I think it was the Commanders.
It was the Commanders.
Yeah. That's a different game. We're talking about Steelers.
It's the same premise. If you know what's coming, if you're the Steelers, who have a better defense than the Washington Commanders do, and you could stop Mark Andrews, who instantly becomes the number 1 target that the Ravens have, with Zay Flowers going to be out for this game? Or if you want to say number 1 threat to be Derrick Henry?
You have Bateman, too.
Bateman, the deep ball guy.
So, that stretches the field. And that guy is good. He catches those long balls.
He has almost half of the target Zay Flowers has.
Yeah, well, now Zay Flowers isn't playing.
Correct.
So
you think Lamar Jackson's going to feel safe waiting in that pocket, waiting against that defense, which he hasn't performed well? I'll bring up the numbers again, because I don't think you realize. He hasn't played well against the Pittsburgh Steelers in his career.
That's history. That's the past. It doesn't necessarily predict the future. They have a different running back this year. They beat them.
They already played the Steelers twice this year.
They beat the Steelers.
They also lost to the Steelers.
They beat them soundly in the most recent game.
They also lost to the Steelers this year.
But that was way back there. That was a long time ago. Now I'm saying most recently, the Ravens beat the Steelers handily.
Yes, because of turnovers. Once again, Russell Wilson was driving and had an opportunity to put them up 14-7 early in that game.
Do you think he's going to be any different in this game? You think he's going to play better and not turn the ball
By the
over?
way, hold on. That Week 11 defense you brought up with the Baltimore Ravens, you know what Week 11 was? The Pittsburgh Steelers.
I said since Week 11.
That means Week 11 on.
Yeah.
That means you started with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
And you lost to them in that game.
So their defense has played a lot better down the stretch. The Ravens has than the Steelers have.
Because you want to know the teams that they were up against? The Cincinnati Bengals, who they gave up 38 points to. The Cleveland Browns. Was it twice? No, once. Excuse me, once. Oh, no, hold on. Let me get this on. Timeout. Let me get this right. Yeah. So since Week 9, you played the Denver Broncos.
Not Week 9, Week 11.
Sorry, Week 11. Week 11. The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers, who you lost to by 7 because somehow the Chargers defense couldn't stop them on their own 35-yard line on the 4th down. Regardless. The Philadelphia Eagles, which you lost to. Lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants. Great win over them. The Pittsburgh Steelers again.
Beat them handily.
The Houston Texans, who have been sliding all year and are banged up to hell.
They beat them soundly.
And you finished them off with the Cleveland Browns with Bailey Zappi as the starting quarterback. In a game where Lamar Jackson did not have a good game.
Yeah.
50% completion percentage.
Your defense is so good that a 400-pound lineman got an interception.
Because it's Bailey Zappi throwing him the football. Against difficult competition, their defense does not show up. Are you telling me right now, since Week 11, that the Chargers and the Eagles, I'll give it to you, but then you went 1-1 in those games. The Giants, the Steelers again during their 4-game losing streak, the Texans and the Browns. That's difficult competition for you? The Browns on their 4th quarterback.
The odds makers say the Ravens are going to win by 9.5.
We can't win by 9.5.
I don't think they'll cover the point spread, but I do think they'll win 28-20.
Give me the Steelers all day. It's playoff Lamar Jackson going up against your division opponent. Mike Tomlin's got to get a win here, and I think he will.
We'll see.
All right, coming up, the Bills and the Broncos. Is there an upset about to happen, as well as Packers, Eagles, Commanders, Buccaneers, and also Vikings, Rams? We'll get into all of it right after this very short break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, the Denver Broncos, with rookie quarterback Bo Nix, did make their first playoff. They did make the playoffs and ended an 8-year playoff drought, which was the second longest in NFL in the NFL right now. The Jets claim the number one spot with 14 straight years of doing that. Good job for them. But with Bo Nix, after coming out of the draft as the last quarterback picked in the first round to the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton believed in him from day one and said he was excited as he was when analyzing Patrick Mahomes way back when he was drafted in 2017. Now they make the playoffs, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills, number 2 seed in the AFC with a great 14-3 record, ended up taking down the top 2 teams in the NFL, the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, and now have an opportunity, I think one of the best opportunities with the way Josh Allen has been playing, the way this team has been playing, to make a legitimate Super Bowl run, which I haven't believed they've been able to do in several years now because the Kansas City Chiefs always are in their way somehow. But I think when it comes down to it, big-time moment for Bo Nix, big-time moment for Sean Payton, but an even bigger moment for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills after being doubted, I would say. Or at least there was concerns after losing your top 2 wide receivers as well as some of your key defensive pieces. So I want to know, do you think the Broncos have any sort of a shot against the Buffalo Bills this weekend?
I don't. Over the past 10 seasons, rookie quarterbacks are 0-5 outright and 1-4 against the spread in road games. So I don't think that the Broncos are going to win. I like the Broncos. I like Bo Nix. I think he's had a very good season. It was all world last week against Kansas City's second and third string players, but against the Bills, I'm afraid he's going to have a much tougher time. I think the key to winning here for the Broncos, slow down Josh Allen. That's going to be tough to do, given that the Broncos couldn't stop Lamar, couldn't stop Mahomes, couldn't stop Burrow, couldn't stop Herbert this season. Allen has as many rushing TDs, 12, as the Broncos have as a team. I have to stop Allen from successfully improvising with runs and passes after the initial reads are taken away from him. He's been exceptionally good at that this season. I don't think the Broncos are going to be able to do that. For the Bills to win, the Bills are always strong in the first round. They've been 4-1 recently with Allen starting. The defense needs to get off the field. That's been their problem this season. They are the worst in the third down conversion percentage allowed at 43.8%, and they need to get more pressure on the quarterback. They only had 39 sacks, which was 18th. Nix was only sacked 24 times. So I think the Bills' defense has got to get off the field. They got to put more pressure on Nix. Allen has to have a good game, and he has to just continue the way he's been playing. They've only turned the ball over 8 times in the regular season, which ties the Saints for the fewest in turnovers since they started recording the statistic back in 1933. The Broncos allowed the third least rushing yards per game, but I expect Allen to scramble successfully when plays break down. My matchup X factor is Courtland Sutton trying to get open on deep routes against the Bills' zone defense, which they play 68% of the time. The refs in this game, this crew only threw 12.9 flags per game, which is the lowest in the NFL. That's good for both teams, as the Bills were 18th and the Broncos were 21st in total flags this season. The Bills are undefeated at home. They're the only team to beat Kansas City. Allen cut way down on his turnovers this year. The defense is a concern, not being able to get off the field, as I mentioned before. The Broncos, they didn't play great down the stretch. There's strong defense with Pat Surtain, who could be the defensive player of the year. They have the highest 3-and-out percentage. That's not so good for them. They can't give the Bills the extra opportunities. The Bills allowed just 218 passing yards per game over the last 3 games. So I like the Bills in this one.
What's the score?
I have them up 31-23.
Interesting. And I want to make this clear. But big Bo Nix fan. Ever since day one, ever since we did the draft, big Bo Nix fan. I believed he would be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I didn't expect this level. I expected them to win 7 games because they were 5.5. That was their Vegas line to start the year. I am also going to go with the Bills, and this is the record I have, the score I have, 30-24. I do have them covering the point spread because I think that in the last 8 weeks, last 8 games, I should say, the last 8 games, we've seen a very similar performance as a quarterback because if you look, Bo Nix and Josh Allen, I know it's crazy to believe, they have very similar numbers. And here's the thing. Bo Nix beats him out in completion percentage, 66-63. Passing yards a game, Josh Allen beats him out by 5. Touchdown interception ratio, 17-7 to 14-5. I think Bo Nix hasn't beat there. And passer rating, 96.6 to 96.1. Bo Nix has been an insane quarterback the last 8 games. I think when it comes down to it, it comes down to the offensive line. It comes down to pressuring Bo Nix because Bo Nix, when being pressured fewer than 25%, or let's go 30% of the time, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, which is shocking for a rookie quarterback to be this good. They have the number 1 pass blocking offensive line in the NFL. They have the best pass block efficiency offensive line in the NFL. And I think what's interesting is that they also have a top 10 run blocking offensive line. They have one of the better overall offenses, in my opinion, when you break everything down, when you realize that they have a rookie quarterback with a running back group that's not great. They only have one real true wide receiver in Cortland Sutton. I think Marvin Mims, a perfectly fine receiver. Vele's a nice piece. But if you compare them to the rest of the NFL, these guys aren't really, sizing up to the rest of the NFL. Baltimore, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Buffalo, Amari Cooper, as well as Khalil Shakir. And also James Cook in the backfield. Tampa's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You go open that line. Kansas City has Travis Kelce, and I think right now D-Hop. There's a lot. You could keep going. Even if Dak Prescott was out there. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. So, you can keep going with a bunch of these teams to realize that they have a lot of talent, and then the Broncos have really just Cortland Sutton. I understand that, there's key pieces here and there. Like, I'm forgetting his name. In the backfield, Estime, he's a perfectly fine running back. He played pretty well, yeah, I agree, but Bo Nix is really throwing it to guys that are really subpar. You look at their receiving group numbers, it's not that great. In fact, you can keep going all the way down. According to Pro Football Focus, they have the 27th graded wide receiver core in the NFL. So it's not a good receiver core, yet they're 10-7, shocking the world with how they're performing. They're which is ridiculous. 10-7 with a rookie quarterback when you were projected 5.5 wins. And I think it's interesting. I think the Broncos, especially with their defense, they'll give the Bills some stretch of some issues here. Because I think when it's all said and done, Bo Nix will cost them the game. I think he'll throw a late game interception. I think it'll be some sort of issue when it comes to that. But I think, looking at the Broncos, very great, very, very good defense. They're the 3rd best scoring defense in the NFL, the 7th best total defense in the NFL. They're number 3 against the run. Against the pass, that's where I'm a little bit concerned. And I think that Josh Allen will make big-time plays because he makes big-time plays against inferior teams. It's against the superior teams, or at least the even teams in the playoffs, that Josh Allen struggles in. But the way he's playing this season, way more efficient football, which may cost him an MVP just based on the fact that everybody now is using the numbers argument. I am taking the Bills, though. Like I said, I'll take the Bills, the 30-24. But I really think, let the Broncos give you a run for your money. I think they'll be able to do it.
Okay, well, we agree on this one. I do think one X factor here could be the coaching. Sean Payton, I give the nod to. I think that McDermott, right? He makes mistakes in game management and in playoff games. So we've seen it in the past. He's cost the Bills games that they could have won, particularly against the Chiefs a few years back. So that could be a factor here. But I think that the Bills will score quite a few points in this game, and I think that'll be the difference. I think they're going to get it over 30 points. They've been scoring at that rate most of the season, so I give Sean Payton a lot of credit. I mean, look where he's brought the team back from the Russell Wilson debacle and the dead cap space and all of that really affected them negatively. The defense is really quite a strong defense. Bo Nix has played. You showed the stats there. He's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year, even though he's a rookie. But rookies don't win in the playoffs and on the road. So that's going to be the problem here. One of the problems for the Broncos, and the Bills playing at home. They haven't lost a game all season, so it looks good for the Bills to me.
I mean, I'm not having Bo Nix go out and win this game. I'm saying at least cover. I think this game will be interesting, and then late, I think Bo Nix, because he's a rookie, will make a rookie mistake, whether it's a fumble, whether it's a bad pick. There'll be some form of Bo Nix doing something poorly to cost them this game.
I do think the Broncos wide receiver core is a little stronger than you give them credit for.
They're ranked 27th in the league.
Well, so the whole season, that was the whole season, though. I think that Mims, he's a special player, man. Lately, he made some very big plays down the stretch, and Sutton is a very good receiver. He's big. I mean, you can throw it to him down in the red zone, and he's going to make those catches. So I give him. I think they have a decent wide receiver core.
Well, first of all, they haven't changed their receiver core. So me saying they're ranked 27th, you say, well, that's the whole season.
Yeah, they've been better lately. I think look at Mims. He's had some great games.
Mims had a couple great catches, yes.
Yeah.
But he's not going out there dropping 100 yards a game. He's not out there dropping 70 yards a game.
I don't know. We'll see. I think that he's a big play guy.
Yeah, he's made a couple big plays, but I'm saying in totality, Cortland Sutton's their guy. Very key on third down. He's made some incredible third down catches. But this is not a wide receiver core that you necessarily fear. Mm-hmm. It's not the Texans when healthy.
But the Bills' wide receiver core isn't one you'd fear either.
Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, who's one of the most important pieces of that wide receiver core. He catches everything.
Their wide receiver core was underrated. Well, it was. I wouldn't say maybe underrated, but it was. It wasn't thought highly of. In the beginning of the year, and they picked up Amari Cooper late in the season. He really hasn't done that much for them.
It's the threat that he could do something.
Yeah, well,
he made some
until you do something. I mean, that's the argument you just made for Lamar Jackson. And show me, brother, show me that you can do it.
Yeah,
let's see,
I can. Look at the Chiefs game. Look at the Chiefs game. Look at what Amari Cooper did in that Chiefs game. Made some incredible catches down the sideline, one hand grabs over Trent McDuffie. Cross field on a beautiful throw by Josh Allen right into the arms of Amari Cooper. That
was quite a number of games ago. I haven't heard much from him in the last 4 or 5 games. Yeah, I'm talking about
big-time game. The last 5 games, yeah, you know why? Because they really weren't up to, playing dominant teams besides the Detroit Lions, which they completely just crushed on.
How many catches did Cooper have in that game?
I'm looking at it right now. Cooper was out for that game. He didn't play.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, you can't say he played poorly if he didn't play. But just to prove your point, Keon Coleman had his 64-yard grab. Dalton Kincaid finally showed up.
Coleman he's a rookie.
So?
He's
so?
Not. I think
Zay Flowers made a couple great plays last year for the Ravens, and he was a rookie.
But
Puka Nacua was insane his first year as a rookie. Just because he's a rookie, why does that matter?
No.
Why does it matter? He's a rookie. So? Bo Nix made the playoffs with the Denver Broncos as a rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels looks like one of the best rookies we've seen in a long time. Mm-hmm.
We'll see what they do in the playoff game.
But why does it matter if he's a rookie?
Because this is their first game playing in the big dance. It's win or go home.
Yes, but a wide receiver is a dependent position.
We'll see what happens. Look what happened to Zay Flowers in his big initial playoff game. He blew it.
He tried to make a big-time play.
Tried to make a play, and he blew it.
Because his team needed him to make a play.
He fumbled. He should have. They were down there. They were first down and goal within a couple of yards from getting the touchdown, and he gave up the ball.
Yes.
So that was a rookie mistake.
I agree, but I could understand.
You just said that Bo Nix is going to make a rookie mistake in the
Bulls. I believe
the Bills meeting. So that's why I say he's a rookie. He hasn't had the experience.
But that doesn't say he can't make an impact.
He can't play well. But
that's what you're saying, though. You're saying he's a rookie. Yeah, after I said he had a 64-yard catch.
Doesn't say that he can't play well.
You just said that because I said he had one catch for 64 yards. And you're like, well, he's a rookie. So?
Rookies
Zay
make mistakes
Flowers
in
made a
playoff
great
games.
play, and he felt like he needed to make the play, and that's why he made that mistake. It was a hell of a play by L'Jarius Sneed to knock the ball out. But the Ravens needed a big-time play in that moment. When you're down, you need to make plays. When you're not doing well all game, you need just that little ounce of spark to turn things around, and that's exactly what Zay Flowers tried to do. It was a hell of a play by L'Jarius Sneed. Was it ultimately, we look back on it? Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20. Was it a bad play and an unnecessary play? Now we say that, yeah. But diving for the end zone, everybody does that when they're close. Sneed made a hell of a play on the ball. I'm not discrediting, a great play just because he's a rookie. He's a rookie. He made a phenomenal play. He caught the ball right on the end zone. He dove for the goal line. Who doesn't do that when you're down that far? In that moment, when your team's playing that poorly,
it wound up being a turnover.
Wound up, correct, because Sneed made a great play. That offense for the Ravens was nothing. The running backs ran it 6 times, and historically, before this season, before Todd Monken got there, they were a run-first team. And last year, Todd Monken decided to go against their entire philosophy, and they ran it 6 times.
Well, that was a mistake. They're not going to make that mistake tomorrow.
Well, you don't know. You do not know that because he already made that mistake against this team very late in the game. In the fourth quarter, did we see Derrick Henry? Not really that much. This is what I'm saying, though. I think Keon Coleman can make big plays. I'm saying anybody on the Bills can make big plays. They're in the NFL. They're 14-3, or 13-4. They're making these big time plays. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills to win, but I'm thinking that with the defense that the Broncos have, with the way the offense has been performing as of late, I think Sean Payton's a better head coach than Sean McDermott. And you talk about late game coaching decisions. Who is one of the worst late game coaching deciders in the NFL?
McDermott.
Right. I think Sean Payton will sort of expose that, but because Bo Nix is a rookie, he'll try to make the play, just like Zay Flowers. It won't work out that well. It could be a crucial 4th down where he could have taken the drag route, but he said he took a deep shot to try to make the play. It could happen like that. Does it mean he can't be effective tomorrow or this weekend? No. But what it does mean is he's a rookie, lack of experience.
What score do you have in this game?
30-24.
So you have
by the way, talk about the defense being so great for the Ravens since week 11. The defense for the Buffalo Bills hasn't been great either. They're giving up over 28 points a game
I
as
said
of
that.
late.
There's a weakness to them. They can't get off the field.
So I'm saying Bo Nix makes it interesting. I mean, since the last 8 games, besides week 18 against the Chiefs backups, and Josh Allen played one singular snap, I believe. Well, guess what? They're actually, you could argue that Bo Nix has been the better quarterback in the last 8 games. Better passer rating, better completion percentage, more passing touchdowns, 5 fewer yards per game.
I don't think he will be against the Bills at home in a playoff game.
You think that?
That's what I think.
Who knows? Who knows? All right, let's get to the next one here. Packers-Eagles. It looks like Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts will both play in this game after dealing with some injuries. Jalen Hurts was in the concussion protocol for the past 3 weeks. Now he looks like he's cleared to play after being a full participant. And Jordan Love made his return after dealing with an injury this week as well. It looks like it's all signs point to green. It's good to go for both quarterbacks in a very crucial game. Jordan Love back in the 7th spot. Last time he was in the 7th spot, he made it all the way to the divisional round after upsetting the Dallas Cowboys. And then ultimately, I would say, outplaying Brock Purdy and then losing, but some would not. But they faced the 49ers late in the game. Brock Purdy made a couple nice plays to eliminate them, but they were the only team in NFL history as the 7th seed to win a playoff game. And now they're in a similar spot against a Philly team that has looked very dominant the past couple of weeks. Now, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith dealing with injuries of their own, they both say that they're ready to go. And also, the Eagles deciding to sit Saquon Barkley and not allowing him to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record. It's now time for Philly and especially Nick Sirianni to show up against the Green Bay team that is hungry for some victories. But Christian Watson is out for this game. I just want to throw that out there as well. But here's the question. Will Green Bay avenge its Week 1 loss against the exact same opponent, the Philadelphia Eagles, this weekend?
No. I have the Eagles winning, covering the point spread. Eagles 31, Packers 21. Packers key to win the game, stop Saquon Barkley. He had 3 straight games against the Packers with at least 100 scrimmage yards. In the last one, the first game this season, he had 3 TDs in that first game. If they're going to stop him, the defense has got to contain him. Edgerrin Cooper is the guy who was in the second level and can has the range to track the ball and the ball carrier on the edges. So he would be the guy if they're going to stop Saquon Barkley. The Eagles, on the other hand, Hurts managing an effective passing game, getting into an early rhythm. He hasn't played since December 22nd, so it'll be important for him to get into an early rhythm. And also, we're running the ball effectively with Barkley, and I think that's what they're going to try to lean on mostly in this game, given that Hurts hasn't been in there. He's been in the concussion protocol. I think getting off to a fast start is really important for them. They failed to do that in 10 of their games this season. Haven't even scored in the first quarter in 10 of those games. It'll be tough for the Packers against the Packers because they allow just 19.9 points per game. That's the sixth best in the league. The Packers offense has been good lately, scoring 30-plus points a game in 5 of their final 7 games. They lost their last game of the season, but Love got hurt in that game. It's maybe questionable about how good his elbow is now. He bruised his funny bone, apparently. The Eagles have won 12 of their last 13. The Packers have struggled against the best teams. They lost to the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Lions. The refs in this game, the crew was the third fewest flags per game at 13.4, but 10 roughing the passer penalties, which is interesting. The Eagles, I think their strengths in this game, they have a well-rounded team without really a specific weakness in the running game. They have Barkley. He had 2,005 yards this year. He could have won the rushing title, the all-time rushing title, but they decided to sit him in the last game, so he's going to be rested for this game. They have an elite offensive line. They have a top receiving core. They have a lockdown defense, allowed only 18.1 points per game, capable of creating turnovers. Their only weakness is their poor performance in the first quarter, averaging only 3.6 points per game. The Packers' strengths, on the other hand, they have a strong run game with Josh Jacobs. He's a top 5 running back. They have a good defense that forces opponents into mistakes. They have some injury issues here. Love's elbow, Christian Watson out with the knee injury he suffered last week. The Packers' defense gave up a little bit more points than the Eagles at 21.1 points per game. I like the Eagles at home.
I'm going to agree with you. I am going to take the Eagles here. My score is, as you see on screen, 27-21. I think the key is going to be turnovers here because both teams take the ball away at an incredible clip. But here's the big thing for the Eagles, right? You have Saquon Barkley back fully healthy. Jalen Hurts has come back from concussion protocol. He's going to be healthy. But here's the big thing. The Eagles' defense from last year, it has come up in big-time moments and big-time spots after being an abomination last year. The Eagles' defense in the last 11 games, they've had at least one takeaway in 10 of those 11, and have had 2 or more in 5 of those 11, and even in a loss to the Commanders, had a 5-takeaway game, and followed that up with a 4-takeaway game against the Dallas Cowboys when they took them down 41-7. So it's been a nice ride for the Eagles to bounce back, especially from being one of the worst scoring defenses and worst total defenses in the NFL. They turned around from 30th in scoring defense to 2nd in scoring defense. They went from being the 26th total ranked defense to being the number 1 total ranked defense in the NFL. I think the big X factor when it comes to the Packers is going to be Jordan Love's performance. I think Josh Jacobs will have some moments here, but it'll be what happens with Jordan Love because fortunately for them, the last 8 games that Jordan Love's been a part of, he's thrown 10 touchdowns, only 1 interception, a 107.7 passer rating. But we've seen this season he has a lot of chances to be reckless. That's the big thing. Recklessness is going to be an issue for Jordan Love here. And I think that if the Eagles take advantage of his recklessness, I think with Saquon Barkley, it'll be drip, 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 all the way down, time of possession. Let Saquon cook, Jalen Hurts, the simple routes, stuff like that. A.J. Brown could cook, I'm sure. But I think it will be a drip, drip, drip game. And we've already seen that this defense comes up big in the big-time moments because we remember to open the game against Green Bay, it was back-to-back turnovers in their own Philadelphia territory, and they didn't allow Green Bay to score touchdowns. They only allowed them to get field goals. It could have been 14-0 very early in that game, and it only ended up being 6-0. So for me, it'll be this defense stopping Jordan Love, or at least forcing him into some big-time turnovers, and then obviously Saquon Barkley has the opportunity to still break a rushing record. It would be the total rushing yards through and through from regular season into postseason. So he has an opportunity still, but chances are he probably won't get it because I think it's like around 500 yards. It's very close to 500 yards that he needs to rush for. Is there an opportunity he could? Absolutely. And I think the way he's playing this season, I think if he broke the record, he definitely deserved more MVP, odds, more nods towards MVP. But the fact that he didn't, I think he has something to play for. Because let's just throw it out here. There's a lot riding on the line for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Nick Sirianni is potentially playing for his job here because if it's a repeat of last year where you go into the playoffs and you lose to a team that is inferior to, I think while Green Bay is a very good team, Philadelphia is better than them through and through. I would say that Nick Sirianni should be fearing for his job because that would be back-to-back seasons losing in the first round of the playoffs to an inferior team. I don't know if it'll still be the same beatdown that the Bucs gave you last year where you made Baker Mayfield look like an MVP candidate. And I think that with Jalen Hurts back, it should be nice. It should be a better offense than McNee, I think his name is. McKee, Tanner McKee, and Kenny Pickett out there. Now that you have Jalen Hurts, he went 12-3 so far this season, 68% completion percentage. The passing yards aren't that great, but he had 18 touchdowns, 5 picks. It wasn't a great season for him. Only averaged 193 passing yards a game. I ripped on Daniel Jones for doing that, and I'll say the same thing. Jalen Hurts needs to play better. He's a $50+ million a year quarterback. I expect him to play better, and in moments like this, you're back. You have what could have been the MVP on your team, who's the 9th player to rush for 2,000 yards. He also has 13 rushing touchdowns. I think that's a big X factor in how you're going to win this game. Give it to Saquon. Have him break some more records because he deserves it. You can't go out like this. After saying that you don't want him to break the rushing record and you benched everybody, I think you owe it to Saquon based on his season performance to come out big and dominate, and I have them doing that I have them beating the point spread as well, 27-21, but you owe that to Saquon, you owe that to the Philly fans, and Nick Sirianni playing for his job, I think, or coaching for his job. I think he needs to, come up big.
I think the Sirianni thing is true. I think it's even bigger this year because they're playing at home, right? They were playing the Bucs on the road last time, so I do think that, if they lost this game at home against the Packers, who are the number 7 seed, they're number 2 with the season that they've had and the way they've been playing with the best running back in the league. I think that you're right. He probably has risked losing his job. I do think Jalen Hurts, they'll be handing the ball off to Saquon a lot here. He's questionable with that concussion that he had. He was in the protocol for quite a while. One thing that he has that's a factor is his ability to run, but I doubt they'll let him run much since he had that head injury. So it's going to be an interesting game, I think. The Packers beat the Cowboys last year as the 7th seed. They beat them soundly, but the Cowboys, they can't win a playoff game. So the Eagles went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They have a chance this year, too. If they got to get by the Packers, and I think they will.
All right, let's get into our next one here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels. The Commanders, I think, have been probably the biggest shock of the NFL season. Jaden Daniels, this team looked abysmal, one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Running game looked okay, but not great. Their defense was terrible last year, and they completely turned it around this year. Jaden Daniels playing out of his mind through large stretches of this season. They had a little bit of a downward turn midway through the year, but bounced back very easily and has played. They haven't played just as a team phenomenal as of late, and now they have an opportunity to go out and win a playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are back for the playoffs for the 5th straight year, and it looks like Baker Mayfield also had a tremendous year this year, opportunity to continue dominating in the NFL and shocking me again. I know you want to call that out most likely. What I said was last year before, how I said, I'll throw it out there, that he would never be a starter in the NFL. I was blatantly wrong.
You're singing his praises now.
I have to. He's proven me wrong, and now I have to own it, which I
that's
have.
Okay. If you step up, that's okay.
But no, this is a big time moment because Jaden Daniels can make his mark in the NFL, and as you've said, as you noted about Bo Nix, be one of the only quarterbacks as of late to come up big and end up winning a playoff game on the road.
None of them have in 10 years.
Right. So they have an opportunity to do that on the road in Tampa. So here's my question to you. What are the chances that the Commanders actually end up upsetting Tampa Bay?
There's a chance, but I don't think it's going to happen. I got the Bucs winning the game 31-27. I think the Commanders' key to winning the game would be to stop the run. Bucky Irving, a surprise for the Bucs. They've ranked second over the past 7 games in rushing yards per game at 183 yards per game. They have White as well, so their running game is something that really hasn't been talked about too much, but has been very good. Washington defense ranks 30th against the run, giving up 137 yards per game. Their defense has improved. After 3 games, beginning of the season, they were ranked 29th in points per game. But from weeks 4 through 18, the games they improved to 12th at 21.6 points per game, and 4th in total yards at 316.1 per game. So their defense is better. Is it good enough to stop the Bucs? I don't think so. I think the Bucs running game significantly improved. That only makes Baker Mayfield better. He can use the play action pass. Baker Mayfield being able to throw it to Mike Evans, and this new guy, Jalen McMillan, who has played very well, had a touchdown in each of his past 5 games. He can stretch the defense and is a good complement to Mike Evans. That's a strength that they haven't really talked about, but has been big for the Bucs down the stretch here. I think the Bucs' key to winning is stopping Jalen Daniels. His running. He rushed for 2 TDs against them in the first meeting. Since then, they've done a better job of containment. In weeks 1 through 9, they gave up 5 yards per rush to the opposing quarterback, which was 22nd. Now they're only giving up 3.2, which was 3rd. I think a potential problem for the Bucs is they love to blitz 36% of the time, and no quarterback scrambles at a higher rate against the blitz than Daniels. His yards per rush increased from 7.2 on regular plays to 10.7 yards against the blitz. I mentioned my X factor in this game for the Bucs is Jalen McMillan, who's, as I mentioned, had a TD catch in each of his past 5 games. He can stretch the defense and is, as I mentioned, a good complement to Mike Evans. The refereeing in this game, they threw the second most flags per game, 18. Only 4 roughing the passer penalties. Each team has 6 roughing the passer calls in the regular season. So that's an interesting stat. I like the Bucs to win.
Well, I said I would shock you in the pre-show, and I'm going to do it again. I got the Commanders winning in this one. I got Jaden Daniels showing up big, 24-20 here, and here's why. There's going to be a guy out there. His name I don't know if people know, Marshawn Lattimore. Remember him against the New Orleans Saints? He used to play for against Tampa, and they don't like each other. In fact, I'll go out of the way and say that they hate each other. They are very fierce competitors, a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, a lot of everything out on the field. And I think when it comes down to it, let's just say, all intents and purposes, because I do think that this would matter, Marshawn Lattimore 1-on-1 against Mike Evans. I think that'll render Mike Evans relatively unavailable as a secure target for Baker Mayfield. And I think that will force him to rely on some of his rookie receivers and lesser receivers. And by lesser, I don't necessarily mean that they're terrible. I just think Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame level receiver. And so I think a lot of receivers in the league are lesser than Mike Evans. But I think that if, let's just say, that Marshawn Lattimore does wipe out Mike Evans, or at least render him ineffective, I'm talking about let's say 5 catches for 40 yards, no touchdowns. I think people would agree that it's rendering Mike Evans essentially ineffective. You're going to rely on Trey Palmer. You're going to rely on some rookies.
Jalen McMillan.
You're going to rely on McMillan.
Jalen McMillan has played extremely well the last 5 games.
For a rookie, absolutely. But you're talking about going up against a team that has shocked everybody. Not a single person thought that the Washington Commanders would be in a spot here. Really. And also the fact that they would have an above-average defense. And you talk about helping out in the passing game. They have the 3rd best pass defense in the NFL, which is completely contradictory to what they were last year, which is dead last. Mm-hmm. It's kind of just flipped the entire script around.
Is Marshawn Lattimore, has he played? This will be his first game in quite a while, right? He was out hurt for a lot of the season. Since he came to Washington.
He played 9 games this season.
He played 9 games. Did he play any games with Washington? Will this be his first one? Since they traded for him, he was hurt almost the whole time.
He was. Marshawn Lattimore this season, he has played 1 game with Washington against Philly, which they won. He had 4 combined tackles, 3 solo, 1 assist. So he's played a big-time moment where they won. Uh-huh. And also, let's just say, because if you make Marshawn Lattimore a qualified defensive back, according to Pro Football Focus, he would have been ranked 52nd out of 223 eligible cornerbacks in coverage. So, yes, he didn't play that much, but he's had a big impact so far this year, even when he was playing with the Saints. Mm-hmm. So, I think Marshawn Lattimore is the X factor for the Commanders defensively. I think that if you take out Baker Mayfield's comfortable target, especially in the red zone, you make Baker Mayfield have to force it to another receiver. Because I think that they'll do a decent job at trying to at least slow down Bucky Irving. Because I think Bucky Irving will have a pretty decent game. I also think Rachaad White will also have a decent game. I think Jaden Daniels, the way he's been playing, and it's not only against like bad teams as well or lesser teams. He's going up against some top tier teams like Philly and beating them, like the Steelers and beating the crap out of them, or maybe not the Steelers. I want to make sure I get this right. But going up against Philly, shocking them in that game, going up against the Saints, and I know almost losing them, but still come up with big time wins.
How about the game against the Bears? They threw the Hail Mary.
Yeah, that's where the Bears season kind of ended at that point. Losing a 1-point game to the Steelers, but albeit a 1-point game against Pittsburgh's defense. I mean,
I think you know what? I don't disagree with you that the Commanders are going to make
Bengals too.
This is going to make this a very, very close game. Many people are picking the Commanders.
7-point game against
the odds makers
Ravens?
have the Bucks -3.
I know. A neutral
the Bucks
field.
are playing at home.
Right. So essentially, it's a pick'em game.
Yeah.
So for me, all you got to do, Marshawn Lattimore, do your thing. Let Marshawn cook and see what he comes up with. Because I think
putting the game on him is a mistake because he hasn't played that much this season.
So
he's going up against Mike Evans, who, as you say,
they hate
is
each other.
Probably a Hall of Fame player.
But they're used to each other.
And Mike Evans pumped up. He got his 1,000 yards on one of the last plays of the game last week. Got a $3 million incentive bonus. That guy's on a cloud 9 right now. He's going to be playing his best. Baker Mayfield plays well in the playoffs. He played very well last year. They surprised people. They played very well against the Lions. They lost the game, but they played well. It was a very competitive game. So I like the Bucs at home.
Well, again, yeah, Marshawn Lattimore hasn't played a lot this season. But he also is very familiar with Mike Evans because he's lined up on at least 50% of Mike Evans' routes in 12 of 13 career games, including the playoffs. Would you believe that he hasn't given Mike Evans a reception in 5 out of those 13? Oh. So, yeah, it doesn't matter that he's not used to being out there. He does know the guy he's probably going to play across from.
Maybe he's going to get tired out there. Is he in really good shape? He hasn't played that much football.
Tired. He's an NFL player. He's an athlete.
Yeah. Well, what was his injury?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me. Does it matter?
It does. I mean, if it's a injury where you couldn't work out and stay in good shape, then maybe
he's an NFL player.
I don't know, what difference does that make? If a guy sits around for 6 weeks and then he goes out and plays football against one of the best receivers in the NFL.
You think that NFL players who get hurt mid-season are sitting on their couch just chilling?
I don't know.
They're in rehab.
If they have an injury where they can't work out, then that's
rehab.
why I'd like to know
You're building strength.
What was Marshawn Lattimore's injury? I don't know what it was.
Strength. You're not sitting on your couch. You're not doing a Joe Flacco through the first half of the season. And by the way, Joe Flacco was out half the year sitting on his couch, won comeback player of the year, and led the Browns to a playoff game.
We'll see what happens with this one.
NFL player, he's lounging on his couch because he can't work out.
I do think Jalen Daniels is capable of finding a way to win this game, but I think it's going to be very close. But I like the Bucs to win it.
All right, let's get into our final one here. It is the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. These teams did play against one another earlier on the year, and the Vikings ended up coming down with a 30-20 loss against the Los Angeles Rams. That was Puka Nakua's first game back from injury, coming off IR. Cooper Kupp also was not really a big factor this year just because of how well Puka Nakua is playing, but I still think he's a serious threat. Meanwhile, the Vikings coming off a crippling loss, 31-9 against the Detroit Lions. A very, very bad game for Sam Darnold. 18 of 41 attempts completions. So I would like to know, can the Vikings bounce back from their loss to Detroit, or is the season going to be over on Monday night?
This is a tough one to pick. And the Vikings are favored on the road, -2.5. But I don't think they're going to get it done. I think the Rams are going to win 28-24. As you mentioned last week, Darnold had his worst game of the season on the biggest stage for him to date. While the Rams backups pushed the Seahawks to the brink, coming up short for their sixth consecutive win. I see the Rams on a roll, and I think they're going to keep rolling. Because of the wildfires, this game is in Los Angeles. This game is going to be played in Arizona, which I'd say is a significant negative for the Rams. They aren't playing in their home stadium, but I still think they're going to find a way to win this game. Both teams, I think, are well coached. They have savvy veterans and legit game guys that can make plays at critical positions. The Vikings lost to the Rams earlier in the season. The teams are no better than they were then, I don't think. Actually, I think they're both better than they were then. It was I was more confident about the Rams when they were playing at home, but I'm still going to go with them. The Vikings only had three wins against playoff teams during the seasons, the Texans and the Packers twice. I'm still going to go with the Rams. They've been on the roll, and I think that will continue. I think the X factor in this game, expect the Rams defensive tackle Braden Fisk, who had 8.5 sacks and 32 pressures in the regular season, to have a good game against the Vikings O-line that struggles against interior power rushers. So I think you're going to watch that and see what happens there. The refs in this game, the Rams flagged at least the least of any playoff team during the regular season. This crew had the second fewest flags of any crew at 13.4. The Vikings, on the other hand, drew the most flags at 8.3 per game in the league.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go also with the Los Angeles Rams. These are our picks right now. You have them winning 28-24. I have them winning 31-28. I think this will be a high offensive game. I think when it comes down to it, the big time players will make the big time plays, and I think that's right now the way the Rams have been playing as of late. That's Cooper Kupp, that's Puka Nacua, that's Kyren Williams, and that's Matt Stafford. And also we have to realize that the Rams defense, from being so banged up early in the year, it's come alive as of late. They've done a tremendous job defensively. They're healthier now. They're healthy now. And by the way, in that last game against Seattle, Jimmy Garoppolo nearly led a victory against Seattle's starters. That just shows you just how great the coaching could be. If Jimmy Garoppolo, with the backups for the Los Angeles Rams, can still somehow lead late and somehow still lose within only 5. The point spread was, I think, 7 or 6.5. You actually end up covering the point spread. But Matt Stafford, his big thing is pressure. He, I think, is the lowest or close to the lowest graded quarterback when under pressure. If the Rams' offensive line could somehow just prep for the Vikings' defensive pressure and slow them down a little bit, get the ball over to Cooper Kupp, get the ball over to Puka Nacua, or dish it off to Kyren Williams on a Texas route or a flat or a little curl route, whatever the case may be, get it to your playmakers to make the big-time plays. You got to get it out quick. The offensive line has to hold up for just an ounce longer than they probably would actually want to in a normal situation, but they desperately need to. The offensive line for the Rams this season, at least since Week 11, is ranked 15th in the league. Minnesota, though, they have an issue right now because you have to go all the way down to 21 since Week 11. That's what their offensive line is ranked. It's not great. The interior offensive line is not good at all. Get your interior rushers there. They shockingly, and I even said this before the draft. I said the loss of Aaron Donald is big, but if you can focus heavily on defense and especially building up that defensive front, you could create a lot of guys to generate the amount of pressure that one guy, who is one of the best defenders in NFL history, interior defenders in NFL history, the amount of pressure and the effectiveness of that guy. You could stretch it out among several players, which they kind of did. I mean, they probably have the defensive rookie of the year on their side of the ball. It was a great draft pick, great pickup for him. I think that it'll show up big time in this game. So I'm actually going to take the Rams here. They are the better team in my opinion, while the record doesn't say it. Large part early in the year, they were so banged up on the offensive side. Offensive line was in ruins earlier in the year, but now that they're all healthy, I think it'll come up big. Byron Young has come up big. Jared Verse is going for defensive rookie of the year. Braden Fisk defensively. I think Kobe Turner. I think all these guys are defensive ends, defensive tackles, or edge rushers. I think they'll cause havoc, and we just saw what the Detroit Lions did when you kind of not really change coverage. You just send a bunch of guys. You make Sam Darnold speed up his mental clock, speed up his maybe speed up his thought process. Maybe not put enough air on the ball like he did a couple times with Justin Jefferson. Either too much or too little. Not get the ball to your playmakers. I think if the Rams do that, they'll come out on top here. I think it'll be a relatively high-scoring game because I think with last time it was 30-20. So I'm saying that the Vikings score a touchdown more. So for me, give me the Rams 31-28. There we go. You are 28-24. And those, I think, are our wild card picks. Should be interesting. Vikings a favorite on the road. Don't love that. This is a big spot for Sam Darnold.
So in this round, the Super Wildcard game, there's always upsets. Last year, the Packers upset the Cowboys. We got quite a few upsets here.
I think I know for a fact I picked Jordan Love last year just because Dak Prescott in the playoffs.
But we have quite a few upsets here. We have
you have all favorites.
No, I picked the Rams here.
The Rams should be favorites.
They are. They are. So it's an upset, right?
It's not really an upset. They have the lowest point spread on the board. I have two upsets going. I got Steelers plus 9.5 on the upsetting.
Plus you've got the Commanders.
I have the Commanders winning. Yeah.
So you got 3 upsets. I have 1.
2 upsets. Steelers and Commanders. Oh, again, I'm saying the Rams are not an upset. In my mind, if you want to go Vegas, technically they are.
Yeah, okay. I'm going Vegas.
But I just think, what was it? I think I saw ESPN is 58% that they're voting on the Rams, or something like that. So to me, this isn't an upset. The fact that it's 2.5 points on the road after that blowout, I don't trust them. They already beat them one time this season. It's the lowest point spread on the board too.
It's interesting. In 2013 to 2017, the number 1 seed rolled right through and went to the title game in either the NFC or the AFC. Since then, it's either the number 2 seed or below. And there's always been these upsets in these wild card super matchups. So it's going to be fun to watch. A lot of football, 6 games. We'll be watching every one of them, and we hope you will be too. And it'll be fun to get back here and talk about how they come out, particularly that Steelers-Ravens game, Nate. I can't wait to talk about that one.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be enjoyable. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, why are we surprised? If you stick around Tuesday and that happens, you already know what I'm going to start with. So there you go. Man, I can't wait. Steelers-Ravens, that's going to be a fun game to watch. 9.5 point spread for a division rival.
I thought the point spread's a little too high, but I do think the Ravens will win.
It's a division rival in the playoffs. Which Lamar Jackson historically, I don't get it. The point spread for me is the easiest. It was the easiest part of this. They have the biggest point spread as well as the lowest ticket prices out of anybody.
Be fun to go to that game.
It's interesting. All right, I think that wraps it up for us here. Thanks so much for tuning in to today's show. As always, we'll be back Tuesday. We're going to cover every single game that is during Super Wildcard Weekend. The last one, Monday night, Vikings-Rams, that should be an entertaining one because I believe based on my projection, no. But if all favorites win and the Rams upset, or actually either team upsets, that team plays the Detroit Lions. So we could see a Vikings-Lions rematch in the divisional round.
Yeah. Or a Rams-Lions rematch from last year's playoff game, right? That was a very good game. That was a great game.
Because that was the wild card game. Yeah. Everything on the line. And then Matt Stafford played great.
He did.
They went toe to toe.
Yeah.
And then
you think the Lions want to see the Rams again? I don't think so. I think they'd much rather play the Vikings.
Oh, I think they do.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they do.
You think they want to see the Rams?
Oh, here's the thing. I don't think the Lions care.
Maybe not.
I genuinely believe that Dan Campbell is built something there that's we don't care who we play. They just nearly choked to the 49ers, and they somehow allowed the Vikings, who at the time because they had I think a longer winning streak than the Lions did. You go up against them and only allow them to score 9 points. They don't care. They were down 22 guys, and they're somehow out here winning games. They don't care. I think the Chiefs don't care. I think the Lions don't care. The Bills do care because they have to face the Chiefs at some point. I just think that the Lions are a special team this year, just like I thought last year. They're my Super Bowl team. So we'll wait and see. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have the host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're covering every single game from Super Wildcard Weekend. So we will see you there right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift